Welcome to the Purple Positivity Podcast for September the 19th, 2018. I am your host, the amazingly adorable Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my new used desk in my apartment, which I call Jeffrey Thistlework. Yas. Why does that, freaking make me laugh? I don't know. But I'm going to keep doing it because that's what I do. Anyway, so this is going to tie into what I want to talk about today. But last night, I was talking to all caps someone, and he got into a car accident last week, and so he had picked up a rental car today, and he was marveling at all, it's oh, it's got a Bluetooth, and it can do this, and it can do that. And I was like, ooh la la, fancy. And he was really excited about it. And, I said, once your insurance company, pays out so you can get a new car, you're going to have a real hard time going back to not fancy. And he's like, yeah, well, I said, okay, look, I'll make you a deal. If I ever win the lottery, I'll buy you a fancy car. With all the technology you could possibly want. And he kind of laughs. He's like, yeah, right back at you. And I just busted out laughing. And he goes, wait, oh. and then he goes, well, I'm going to buy you a car anyway so that you can look at it. I was like, okay. So, if you're a new listener, the reason that is funny is that I am legally blind, visually impaired, whatever you want to call it. I call it blind-ish. I can see, kind of. I can see shapes and I can see colors and I can read text if it's big enough. But I have, no peripheral vision. I have very little depth perception. And, I am legally blind. I don't like to say that I'm blind. I don't like to use the word blind, legally blind. The term legally blind, because that's two words. Anyways, because when you say that, people hear the word blind and they automatically assume deaf and dumb. And so they talk really loudly and really slowly at you. But if you say I'm visually impaired, especially around about these parts, they look at you like you're this little social justice warrior snowflake who's trying to be politically correct, and then they patronize you and condescend to you. And so I started saying blind-ish because they hear the blind and they go, something's wrong with her eyes. But ish means she can still see something. Groovy. Number one. Number two, she was smart enough to come up with this simple term. Not that original of a term, by the way. But she was smart enough to use this term that made me immediately realize the first thing about her vision. So she must be smart. Therefore, she's not stupid. And then the third thing they realize is she was clever enough to come up with this term that made me realize, 1 and 2, and it made me laugh. So she must have a sense of humor about it, so she's relaxed and groovy. And then they don't get all uptight about asking me what I watch on TV. By the way, I get a lot of crap from, not from the blind people that I know here in town, but from the blind community at large online, which is really weird because usually online is such a safe forum. Anyways, but I get a lot of crap because it's well, why not just call yourself blind? Who cares what they think? Who cares? I'm just I just want people to think I'm a human being. So when I'll cap someone or one of my sighted friends, I call them sightlings, when one of them does something, like what I'll cap someone did, and, and just completely forgets that I can't drive, I never will. It makes me feel good. Like, I mean, I just busted out laughing because he'd never done that before. He'd never done that before, and he got, like, I mean, he didn't say sorry or anything, which I really appreciated. I was like, you know what, that just made my day, because you don't see me as a disabled person. You see me just as a person, and that is awesome. I mean, it really makes me feel good. So, as you can tell from the title of the show, Blessed with Blindishness, I want to talk about my disability. And I think my disability is, my attitude towards my disability is, I guess my first lesson amongst many in perspective. When I was 17 years old, my mom wanted to get me contact lenses for Christmas, because she'd noticed I was having a hard time seeing things, and she thought it was because I was being a shitty teenager and not wearing my glasses, because that's what you do when you're 17 and have an attitude problem. All 17-year-olds have an attitude problem. That's just par for the course. So she's like, I'll get you contact lenses for Christmas. And so she set up the appointment with the optometrist, and this was actually 2 days after Christmas. And we went in, and this guy's looking me over. He's like, I can't fix your vision. I can't correct it at all. You need to go see a specialist. And then he pulled out a blood pressure cuff, and my blood pressure was ridiculously low, and he actually suggested to my mom to take me to an emergency room. Well, because I was on my dad's health insurance, she called him. He lives in El Paso. She lived in Atlanta at the time I was visiting, and my dad just sent her home. So one thing leads to another. I skip a lot of things, and turns out I have this tumor called an acoustic neuroma, which actually starts on the 8th cranial nerve, which is the nerve that controls your hearing and consequently your balance. And it was huge. And it had been there for quite a while, you know, and that's not insignificant, because these tumors, this type of tumor actually grows very slowly. It's non-cancerous, thank the gods below. It was benign, but it was huge, and so it had grown for so long and gone unchecked and unnoticed for, we're guessing, about 7 years, that it had actually grown into my brain and was pressing up against the brainstem, cutting off the flow of fluid in my brain, which caused this buildup of fluid in my brain called hydrocephalus, which caused my optic nerves to become inflamed. And in the end, what happened was, because my optic nerves had been inflamed for so long, some of the nerves actually died, and that's why I am the way I am. I'm also deaf in my left ear, and I have facial paralysis as a result of this tumor. I actually had vocal cord paralysis, but we did something to sort of help with that, and, well, I mean, you heard the theme song. I'm singing. Not terribly well, in my opinion, but I have a lot of people who will fight me on that one. But anyways, so I was 17 years old. I actually missed out on the entire second half of my senior year. I didn't get to go to prom. I barely got to walk across the stage. And when I say walk, I mean hobble. I had, like, no balance. I actually had to relearn how to walk, because your balance is actually controlled by your vision, your hearing, and the nerves in the bottom of your feet. Well, my vision was shot. I lost the hearing in my left ear. And so I had to relearn how to walk and to balance. And it was a really rough time. And in the midst of it, I couldn't see how this was all coming together. I couldn't see what the point of it was. I was in a lot of pain. I was really angry. I mean, I remember having an all-out temper tantrum one day because my mom wanted me to chop potatoes. And, you know, and in hindsight, I see what she was doing. I go, yeah, all right. Good job, Mom. You're trying to show me that my life isn't over and I can still do things even though I can't see as well. And life goes on, and, you know, and I can see that. I don't know. I can also see that she probably didn't go about it quite the right way. She went about it the way she knew how, and I don't fault her for it now. In fact, I look back on that and go, oh my gosh, you know, like when I tell people about losing my vision at 17, they go, oh, that must have been so devastating, and you're so strong, and they look at me like I'm this hero, and I'm sitting here going, I think back to that, and I'm going, you look at me now, how many years? Almost 15 years since this all started. And I've had all that time to figure out how to do what I've got to do. You didn't see me throwing a temper tantrum over fucking potatoes. So, but with what I call the benediction of hindsight, I see that losing my vision was the best thing that could have happened to me. And that always sounds so paradoxical to people. Like, how could that be the best thing? Well, for starters, I wasn't planning on going to college. I wasn't. But after I lost my vision, I found out that blind / visually impaired students in Texas don't pay tuition at state schools. And now that's a whole other can of worms to get into as to what I did with my education. But without my loss of vision, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. I have been living independently longer than most people my age. But I think the most important thing that losing my vision did for me was it forced me to stop looking at people and instead start seeing them.